Way back in September 2007, ArenaNet revealed their plans to scrap their only game, Guild Wars 1's development, and move on to a brand spanking new sequel. In it, we were told there would be a 250-year time jump, and the world would be very different. To show us what it was like, Rhys Sosby wrote a long article named The Movement of the World. It was the first ever Guild Wars 2 lore, and the oldest material written about the game these days. Players could first read it in the PC Gamer's September 2007 Ultimate Guild Wars Guide edition, which released 1 month after the final Guild Wars 1 product, Eye of the North. Funnily, that PC Gamer magazine had a page missing, and so the Movement of the World was later posted online. So today, we're going to read The Movement of the World and see just how crazy different its interpretation of what Guild Wars 2 is, and then wonder how this one article ended up guiding so much of the story that we now experience. This is The Movement of the World. By the Mavellian calendar, the year when goddess Cormyr ascended was the year 1075. From that date, we will begin our history lesson, and within that classification of dates, we will show you the future that has become our past. For 250 years, the heroes of Tyria have struggled as the world shifted around them. Massive upheavals, cataclysms, and other global spanning events have changed the world. The humans are in decline, other races are rising, taking control of large portions of the world and shifting the balance of power. The world has changed. The world of Tyria has known conflict, chaos, and generations of war. Rarely has there been a time of peace in these troubled lands. The years since the ascension of Cormyr and the defeat of the Great Destroyer have been no different. There have been dangers, there have been adventures, the world is no longer the Tyria it once was, and yet so many things are the same beneath her troubled exterior. Sleeping monsters aeons old have awakened. They crawled from beneath the earth, razor claws sinking into stone and ground over a world that has not seen their like in a millennia. And when they rose, they dominated the world around them, twisting it to serve their purposes. The first of these, Primordus, gathered minions to replace the destroyers that once served its cause and began to overrun the caverns beneath the earth, gradually pressing the Asura to the surface. Gunnar's hold fell to monsters of ice, and the Norn were driven southward into the empty territory that had once been held by the dwarves. The Char have a tentative friendship with the Norn, respecting their sense of power and personal strength. To the south, the peninsula of Or has risen from the ocean, flooding the coasts with tidal waves. Sanctum Key, Delesio Seaboard, and the Battle Isles sank beneath the waves, and even Lion's Arch was so completely flooded by the cataclysmic upheaval that the great city had to be abandoned. Its buildings collapsed in the flood. The Corsair ships that once hid among the sunken islands of Or capsized, and only a few ships made it out of the tidal areas. Those that did settled along the ruined northern coast, steering clear of the black-mast ships that began sailing the Orient territories. The lost souls of Or, commanded by a dark power from below the sea, rose to take command of the land from the depths of the sea. Strange races, the Norn, the Asura, and the mysterious Silvari, took over large portions of the continent. The civilizations pushed the humans north and west, away from their ancestral land. These races have solidified their presence in Tyria and now take an active role in the events around them. On dragons. Never trust the past. There has been too much forgotten, too many things hidden beneath the sand of ages. Even your own memory can lie to you. Over the last 250 years, the races of Tyria have seen a great deal of strife and war. Conflicts between the humans and the Char, the Norn and any who might challenge them, and among other sentient races have continually threatened the peace of the continent. But these are not the only issues. Although sentient races are one threat, there are, as always, wild creatures and monsters across the countryside, dangers to be faced and troubles to be conquered. But on Tyria, there are even worse things yet to be faced. The cataclysms that tore apart the land and flooded Lion's Arch were not caused by natural forces, no more than were the earthquakes that freed the destroyers in the northern Shiver Peaks. These were both caused by the surfacing of ancient powers. True dragons, more dangerous than anything Tyria has ever known before. Glint and Kunavang were but youths, lesser powers to the ancients that came before. These mystic and terrifying creatures rival the gods themselves. Primordus was the first of the ancient dragons to awaken, calling his servants from their slumber. With his breath he twisted earth and stone, shaping creatures and giving them life. Although the death of the Great Destroyer, his most powerful general, set back the dragon's awakening by 2 generations, Primordus once again rose to create ever more minions far beneath the ground. To this day, he continues to spread his power throughout the deep caverns beneath Tyria. After Primordus, the other great dragons began to stir one by one. The rise of the dragon beneath Ore caused the entire continent to surface, sparking a tidal wave that swept the coastline and drowned thousands. In the deepest waters of the sea, another dragon breathed, twisting the waters themselves into tentacled horrors that rose from every lake and every river of the land. Only a few years ago, yet another dragon erupted from the northern mountains and flew south over the Char territory of Ascalon. The land directly below the path of the dragon's flight was corrupted, becoming a crater of horror. The ground blackened from the dragon's presence, and any creatures caught within the wind of its breath twisted and changed. Although these creatures are called dragons, they are as different from Kunavang and Glint as knights today. More powerful, older, born of different unfathomable magic, these horrors are controlled by no god nor any other power known to the races of Tyria. What connection they have to these younger dragons is unknown, but they certainly do not possess the mercy or familiarity with the sentient races of the world that Kunavang or Glint portray. The cycle of their awakening reaches back to the time of Giganticus Lupicus, and even further, back into prehistory. The only thing known about these monsters is that they have no pity, no curiosity, no concern at all for the other races of the world. Their only goal seems to be to dominate, to control, and to destroy. On guilds. The guilds of Tyria have grown and expanded, despite the destruction of the Battle Isles. Balthazar helped raise a new temple in Lion's Arch, stepping on the hearthstone of the construction and opening a gate there to the mists, so that heroes of each world could compete in contest. But these guilds are not racially aligned as they were in the past, no longer restricted merely to humans. They accept all heroes of all societies into their halls. The Asura easily fit into the guild system, using guilds as they would any other crew designed for a task. To the Char, the guilds are like war bands. They do not replace the loyalty the Char hold to their legions, but instead allow them unique opportunities to display the strength of their race and increase their own personal reputations as ferocious combatants. Norn are always eager for a fight, and their loyalty to friends makes them a blessing to any combat force. Sylvari bring a unique and unpredictable strength to a guild, and are eager to enter into any danger simply for the experience of it. Guilds are a prominent force in Tyria, taking on challenges that individual adventurers fear to face, and braving even the most dangerous opponents. It is said that if there is any hope for the races of Tyria to find peace, it will come from the guilds and their atmosphere of cooperation and unity. On Ascalon, KRYTA, and Ore. For centuries, humans dominated the continent of Tyria, but over the last 250 years, that has changed. Humanity clings by a thread, maintaining its cities only through the absolute dedication of its armies. Ascalon City fell. Rin belongs to the Char. Lion's Arch, inundated by tidal waves, was rebuilt by the mercenary guilds, and Ore rose into undeath and corruption. The gods of the humans have been notably distant these past 2 centuries, withdrawing into silence even as the world beneath them shattered. Although they still answer prayers, they do not intervene, even as Tyria crumbles and the human race calls out desperately for heroes to save them from their darkening struggle. In Ascalon. Having lost their homeland to the Char, the humans of the Ascalon kingdom have been pushed ever west and south. The Great Northern Wall fell, and Ascalon City lies in ruins. The royal line of Adalburn ended with the death of Prince Rurik. The lone remaining human fortress in Ascalon lies at the far southern tip, where the eastern Blaze Ridge Mountains merge with the western Shiver Peaks. This last Ascalonian fortress, known as Ebon Hawk, stands alone against all the might the Char legions have to offer. The continuing conflict between the humans and the Char along the borders of Ascalon forced the humans ever farther into the Shiver Peaks. Although open war has ended, save on a few small fronts, the hatred between the Char legions and the human kingdoms never abated. If anything, it is worse than ever before. Ebon Hawk stands alone in defiance, supplied by an surrogate from the KRYTA territories. The Char solidified their control over Ascalon from their original lands in the north, all the way south to the merging of the two mountain ranges at the edge of the Crystal Desert. Within the main territories of Ascalon, between the broken Great Northern Wall and the fortress of Ebon Hawk, the Char rule, but not unchallenged. In the last battle of Ascalon City, Adalbern used the final power of his enchanted sword, Magdaea, a relic from the age when the true gods walked Tyria and built the city of Arar. The stories told by the Char, and the few scattered human survivors of the battle, speak of a gout of a sword-shaped flame rising from the highest tower in the city. After a white, burning heat swept the city streets, the dead and defeated Ascalonian guard arose once more, their spirits animated by the power of Adalbern's sword. In the face of this spectral resistance, the Char were forced to abandon the city. Since that time, the spectral soldiers have guarded the ruins of Ascalon City and the eastern frontier. They resist the Char, but do not communicate with living soldiers from Ebon Hawk. Their spirits are only memories, the lingering presence of a past that cannot let go of the present. Some believe that one day, when the rightful king of Ascalon returns with one of the two flaming swords, either Adalbern's Magdaea or his son's named Sahothin, the Legion will abandon the city and sink at last into a peaceful death. Until then, everyone is the enemy. On KRYTA. KRYTA too has its share of conflict and heartache. Once noble Lion's Arch fell to the plundering sea, its coast devastated by storms, rising water, and tidal waves. And yet the nation of KRYTA is the last bastion of humanity, and in that their last hope. Under siege from other races for centuries, beset by bad luck and misfortune, and perhaps even forgotten by the gods themselves, human civilization is on the verge of collapse. Only KRYTA's crown has survived to this modern age. Although various factions restored the KRYTAn throne to its rightful ruler, a descendant of Queen Salma, there is no peace in the Tallmark wilderness. The lands of KRYTA have known significant upheaval, both in war and internal conflicts. As the sole remaining human kingdom on the continent of Tyria, Ascalonians flocked there in droves with no king and no real leadership. The few humans who claim Aurian descent never proclaim their heritage publicly. Being connected to those dark lands is dangerous in these times. Refugees from Elona and Cantha, discovering themselves trapped by the rising waters of Or, struggled to maintain a native culture while integrating into KRYTAn society. This melting pot of humanity provides the one thing they all seek: a home. Through faith in the gods and the nobility of the KRYTAn spirit, the Queen solidified her hold over KRYTA and her people and did not devolve into tyrannical rule. From the beginning, they were willing to accept Ascalonian refugees, and as cataclysms across the world displaced other humans and Canthans and Elonans joined the wave of humanity fleeing to the new city of Divinity's Reach, they found a welcome home in the high bastion created to replace Lion's Arch when the floodwaters of Or claimed it. Divinity's Reach, a breathtaking monument of white parapets and high, pale towers, was built on the edge of the Divinity Coast, far from the rising waters of the southern base. In Divinity's Reach, the new Queen of KRYTA established a system of government designed to give all people, not just KRYTAns, a voice. Senators design law, proposing their measures to the Queen, who authorize or rejects their placement into society. These senators come from all human races, representing many voices working in tandem with the Queen's will. Initially, this system was designed as a temporary government for the refugee camps, but in the 150 years since the flood of the Lion's Arch, it has become a stable system, a respected government, and a cornerstone of KRYTAn culture. However, KRYTA is not unassailed. Secret agents of the White Mantle still fight for their unseen gods, and the centaurs, displaced across the continent, are flooding into human territory, fighting over every scrap of land. KRYTA is a war zone, with a few safe havens, a land where the humans must fight for their security and their future. On Ore. Risen from the ocean by the will of a powerful undead dragon, Ore no longer stands under human control. The beings roaming those lands are twisted, perverted remains of Ore's once magnificent culture. Drowned by magic and then raised into service by the will of a monster so terrible there are only whispers of its nature, they now serve a dragon more horrible and more powerful than any other being in Tyria. The Elder Dragon of Ore rules this re-emerged continent with an indomitable will, claiming the peninsula for its own. The city of Ara, where once the true gods walked, rose to the surface to become the creature's home. Its arrival heralded a time of cataclysm and change for the world. Though Ara lies in ruins, conquered by the dragon and its minions, those who venture into Orian soil say they have seen her spired towers, bedecked with rotted banners and guarded by twisted, draconian troops. When the dragon awoke, and the peninsula breached the waves, once ruined buildings and shattered coastal highways rose above the sea as well. In addition to drowning the coastlands of KRYTA and flooding Lion's Arch, this cataclysmic event even turned parts of northern Alona green again for a time. The changes were truly cataclysmic across all of Tyria. Only the greatest of heroes dare venture within the ruined cities of Ore. To adventure there is to face the dragon and its minions directly, and that creature's power is not to be underestimated. Many of the corsairs who inhabited the island chain before the peninsula rose again were subsumed by the dragon's power, twisted by its breath, and enslaved to its will. Ships with black sails, built from seized corsair vessels, sail along the Strait of Malcor west of Ore. These vessels surround the Fire Islands, manned by the undead minions of the dragon that fear neither fire nor sea. This undead armada has cut off all human contact with Cantha, and the dragon's undead army wages war even now along the northern Elonan border, preventing all in Tyria from departing to other lands. For now.